What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Jeff Needs Sports, a product of the Off the Ball Network. Go to the Off the Ball Network for all your sports needs, keeping it real for the real fans. So that's it. This is Jeff Needs Sports. This is my Week 3 college football playoff rankings. So, there's not much to say. Once again, these are playoff rankings. These are not the top 16 teams in America. I understand the difference, but we also all understand we watch college football and we know that the top 16 teams aren't the ones who get the shot every year. There's more factors into it than that. There's the voters, there's the networks, there's the eyeballs, there's the ratings, all these things factor into it. So this is what I kind of presume would be how the playoff picture is shaping up as the season goes on. And here we go. Excuse me. Number 1, Alabama. Really, really tested, beyond tested. Could have, easily could have. Let's put it this way: very competitive game. I never want to say could have easily lost because they didn't. That's rude to say, but they won by 2 points. We'll just say that. But I still think they're the best team in America. If they win out or possibly lose a game, more than likely they're still in the playoffs. So Alabama's still at number 1. Georgia number 2. They basically just, we doubted them for a couple of weeks. There were chinks in the armor, but they get a little better every week. That defense is legit. I can't think of a whole lot of teams in the country that can score enough on Georgia to beat them. So, we're just going to go with that. So I think Georgia's finally at number 2, even though I don't like to put these guys at 1 and 2 because they're going to, if things work out like this, they're going to eventually have to play each other. I like to pick one, but as of right now, I don't have I don't have a better team than Georgia in the country, obviously. Number 3, Iowa. Once again, it's the path. They've looked good. They got the big win over Iowa State. They've got the path to victory. Ohio State obviously they're not obviously looks, they're obviously vulnerable. Iowa has done everything they can do. If they went out, they're in. So number 3. Number 4, Oregon. Same deal. They beat a good Ohio State team. UCLA took a step back. USC took a step back. The Pac-12 looks like it's theirs for the taking. Arizona State took a step back. Arizona's terrible, sorry. Arizona State took a step back. It looks like Oregon's got a clear path to the playoffs to me. So they get a lot of benefit of the doubt for that, plus a really convincing victory over Ohio State. So there's my big 4 as of now. 5, Oklahoma. They dropped out. I'm sorry, but if 2 out of 3 games, just like Ohio State, you look less than stellar, you're going to take a hit. They're at 5. I don't necessarily think that they're a guaranteed in right now if they win out, even with a win over Iowa State, because we just talked about it. Iowa's already got a win. Big 12 doesn't look great. Doesn't look as good as we thought it might have been at the beginning of the season. I dropped Oklahoma down 1. But they're at number 5. They got some work to do. That's it. They're not the team that we thought they were coming into the season, to be honest with you. Number 6, Penn State. Big win over Auburn. I don't care. So there's 2 things here. Yes, we know that Auburn might be we'll just be generous and say the 5th best team in the SEC. SEC is the best conference in America. That does mean something. Eyeballs mean something. That was a big night game. It was the whiteout game. Believe us, we all know they beat us over the head, without enough. So that's a big win on a big stage against a big brand team that really jumps up. And I think they're a good team. I think they've kind of figured out who they are. Their defense is active again. They always manage to put their players in a good position to get the best out of them, and that's what they're doing. Their defense is getting a little better. Offense is getting a little better. We know that Clifford's ceiling isn't that high, but in college football, just get your athletes the ball and see what happens. That's what he does. So I think Penn State took a big step forward this week. In the rankings. Obviously, I got them at 6. Cincinnati at 7. This is essentially, big win over Indiana, who people thought were good. It's a big win because people thought Indiana was good. That's all I'll say about that. How good I think Indiana is does not matter. Cincinnati has the benefit of the doubt. The AP and the coaches poll. People want the group of 5 team in. They're the best one at it, and they're a good looking team. I'm not saying that. So they they did what they needed to do. Number 7, Cincinnati. We'll see. They got another big game coming up. Notre Dame. this is a team that's just like, hey, we put them at 8. They haven't lost. I don't know what else to say. They're a solid team as usual. They had another, I hate to say unimpressive victory because that's like I also on the I talk out of both sides of my face. We just keep saying you got to have victories, got to have victories. Notre Dame just keeps getting victories. I have no reason to drop them. I didn't have no reason to raise them up. I don't think they're better than any team on here. They're going to play Cincinnati, so we get to find out. This is wonderful. So, that's cool. Do I think they're better than Texas A&M? I don't think they're better than Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss right now, we'll talk about them here in a minute, beats Notre Dame by 20. But that doesn't matter. Notre Dame's in a position of 8, and they don't control their path, but they've got a fairly easy one. They not a lot of hairpin turns in the path to the playoffs for Notre Dame if they keep winning. And number 9, Texas A&M. I couldn't hold back anymore. I hate to put all these SEC teams up there, but I'm also not going to punish them for being in the same conference. All they need is an upset. They're going to get a shot at Alabama, later on, or whoever. Now, that really helps them by Ole Miss looking better. So now there's just more teams to play to look better. So now you got a Georgia and Ole Miss and Alabama, and Texas A&M that all look good in the conference, and so that's going to help them out. I can't. This is one where, if the voters didn't have them as high, I would drop them. But they're a really good team and they're a solid team. And number 9's not. It's crazy to say in college football, but number 9's not like overranking them. So Texas A&M at number 9, Ole Miss at number 10. I feel totally comfortable in this. This is a team that if they came into the season ranked higher, would have a much higher rating. If they came into the season ranked where Texas A&M was, they would be up there. If they came in ranked where Cincinnati was, they've done zero negatives. They've done everything they could do. They're destroying opponents. Their offense looks wonderful. Their quarterback looks wonderful. Like I love everything about this team. They get their shot. I believe it's 2 weeks. Alabama, they get their shot, and then it's a whole new ballgame. Honestly, let's put it this way: Ole Miss beats Alabama in 2 weeks. They're the number 1 team in the country. I said it here first. I do not care. Number 2, okay. If you want to give Georgia the benefit of the doubt, whatever. They're going to be. They're in the playoffs. Let's put it that way. They beat Alabama next week. They're in the playoffs as of now. Number 11, Clemson. This team looks weird. This team, much like an Ohio State team that actually dropped out of the playoffs this week. Ohio State's completely out of my Super 16 this week, just because of play on the field. We can't deny it anymore. I mean, they've got to work over Iowa and Penn State now. So there's 2 teams in a just good conference that they got to work over. So Ohio State's dropped out. Clemson at 2-1. They don't have a lot of games in their. I know they're going to get the benefit of the doubt, and if they have a spark here in a couple of weeks and their offense, speeds up, it'll verify where they are and people want to put them in. I don't love Clemson this season. A lot of people don't, but it's hard to drop them, out of the playoffs just because they don't look good. They had they had a close loss to a team that we think is the second best team in the country. It is what it is. Clemson's just at 11 because a lot of it's just because they're Clemson, and that's what we think is going to happen. 12, Iowa State. I got to jump back up there. I really think this is a good team. They just have so many good players, and I think that when they bear down, they can beat a lot of teams, which is obviously this is why I've got Iowa at 3, because I think Iowa State is this good. I think at 12, I think Iowa State can beat a lot of these teams on here, and so the head-to-head, they kind of got the advantage, the experience, and everything. We'll see. They're gonna get their shot. They're gonna get their shot. As of now, I think they're better than Oklahoma in the Big 12. Just on this day, I think they're a little ahead of Oklahoma right now of where they're at in the Big 12. 13, Florida. What more could they do? I mean, within a 2-point conversion of tying Alabama, which I know sounds crazy, but they held their own. Both quarterbacks look pretty good, Jones and Richardson. It looks like Richardson going into next year will be the best player in the country. We'll see, but Florida gets a shot at Georgia. That's Florida's key to this whole thing. They get the shot at Georgia, and then their path opens up, and they can do what they got to do. So, good week by Georgia. Number 14, Michigan. Michigan jumps in. You can't deny it anymore. The only reason Michigan is not ranked higher on anybody's poll, not just mine, is because they started the season with such low expectations. But they've done nothing but bulldozed everybody in their path for 3 weeks. It's silly just because of what it was, the underachieving for the last few years of Michigan. people hold that against them. But the fact of the matter is, in the preseason polls, if they were ranked in the top 16, they would probably be somewhere around where Penn State is now. They haven't, Washington didn't, because of the upset, week one, Washington lost to Montana. It really took away what Michigan's done, but they still beat the same Washington team that everybody saw. So I got Michigan at 14, and they get to play Ohio State. They get to play Penn State. They get to play Wisconsin. So they completely control their path to the playoffs. They're in really good shape right now. And we'll see. Freshman quarterback's always a thing, as we're finding out around the country. But hey, they're at 14. They're in good shape. 15 BYU. I slid BYU up here. Big win over Arizona State over the weekend. They're another G5 team that they're just slightly ahead of that, and I think a lot of people almost perceive them as a Pac-12 team in their head, which gives them some bonus points. And I think they're pretty good. And if this is basically they're here, if they stay undefeated, they're going to be in the conversation. I can't just leave them out because I don't think they're as good as Iowa State or Clemson or Ole Miss or Ohio State or whoever. Do I think BYU is as good as Ohio State? I don't. But the record says that they are. So I snuck BYU up in here, and I feel pretty good about it. They listen, but they get a chance. They get a chance to make their own mistakes. So I'm not going to hold them back until they lose. I'm going to give them a chance. You know what I mean? So and finishing out my Super 16, Coastal Carolina. They're just doing what they need to do. They put teams in front of them. They destroy them. It's fun. Once again, the fact that we got 3 G5 teams in the 16 is amazing, but just with all the upsets, and these teams they're getting upset, but these aren't conference games, so we're not into the real Power 5 conference schedule. So really, everybody's playing sort of on the same plane right now. That's being overlooked. I mean, I'm not saying Alabama, Florida is on the same plane. That's a different animal. But overall, Ohio State, played a Tulsa team that took them to the mat. So I can't penalize Coastal Carolina for their schedule yet. Ask me in 4 weeks after the SEC is ramped up and teams are going, and LSU is the 4th best team in the conference and they're beating people's brains in. That's a whole different story. But as of now, Coastal Carolina's done nothing but beat who's in front of them, and they've done it. So Coastal Carolina finishes out at 16. A couple of teams that dropped out. UCLA dropped out, took a bad loss. They couldn't take that loss in the Pac-12. It just is what it is. There's better teams than them. USC, we talked about last week. Ohio State dropped out this week because they just haven't played good enough. You can't just leave them up there because of their name. The brand is not going to get you into the playoffs. It helps you at the end. If they're undefeated at the end, of course they'll work their way in there because things will sort themselves out. But I couldn't just keep them in there because of of that. So that's it. That's the 16 for this week. I feel good about it. It's obviously going to change. It's not a huge weekend. Week 4 is not a huge weekend. A few big matchups, but it's not. I think Notre Dame, Wisconsin is one. Wisconsin's right there on the fringe of the 16, but not a giant weekend. So we're not going to learn a lot, and then we're going to get into the meat of the conference schedules, and things are just going to blow up. These teams are going to start knocking each other off. They're going to start playing each other. It's going to be great. So far, college football season's been, wonderful. Even as an Ohio State fan, I'm still enjoying the overall season of it. So, hey, thanks again for listening and watching, everybody. This is Jeff Needs Sports, Jeff Needs Sports Podcast. Everywhere you listen to your podcast, like, share, review, go to offtheballnetwork.com and check out everything we're doing over there. We're having a great time. We'll see you later. Enjoy the week, enjoy the season, and be kind, everyone.